Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
Perhaps the best fourth quarter they have played all season. I'll go a step further. Absolutely the best fourth quarter they have played all season as the Suns erase a 23-point second half deficit to defeat the Los Angeles Clippers 119-117 to earn their first victory. Their first victory against a team with a winning record since the Friday before the NBA trade deadline when they beat the Golden State Warriors. What a wild scene it was last night in downtown Phoenix at the PHX Arena, or Center, whatever we're calling it these days. The box score that I'm looking at here on Pro Basketball Reference is still calling it the Footprint Center. They clearly didn't get the memo. But whatever the name of the building is out front, inside it was a 23-point deficit that the Suns erased, and they earned a much-needed victory that draw them one game closer to 500, draw them a half game closer in the standings to the 10-seeded Dallas Mavericks. And we're going to discuss today if the door has reopened for this team to potentially still be in the mix for a play-in spot. That's what a win last night does. It can kind of reshuffle the deck a little bit and force us to have some different conversations than maybe we were having the night before. But a very impressive effort from a team that today could have taken on a different tone. Today could have been another embarrassment at home. It could have followed in the footsteps of where things were after Sunday's game, when you got embarrassed at home against Minnesota. This could have just been a continuation of that embarrassment, and it was trending in that direction. We were trending towards the path of embarrassment. We were trending towards the path of today's show. I'm an open book on this show pretty regularly. I tell you like I see it. I was watching this game last night. I was watching the way the first half was going down. I was watching the way the start of the third quarter was going down. And I thought to myself that the lead of today's show, we were going to open today's show with a conversation about the Suns needing to make a coaching change, about them needing to just end this experiment, usher in a new chapter, allow the young kids to play, remove the distraction. I mean, we're going to talk about it in the next segment. KD and Coach Bud had a bit of an altercation. I'm going to calm everybody down about that if you are worried about that altercation. Tell me you've never watched a sporting event without telling me you've never watched a sporting event if that bothered you last night. But that optic, that backdrop, getting embarrassed for the second straight game at home, that's how we were going to start today's show. But the Suns, for the first time since the beginning of February, were able to beat a team with a winning record, and they showed the fight. They showed the energy. They had that magic in them. We've asked for it over and over and over again. If they were going to turn this around, if they were going to somehow make a run, it was going to require some magic. Last night had the magic. Last night had what we have been wanting from this team for the last couple of months. Now, I will tell you, it didn't necessarily start that way.
We just got to see a lot more defense from the Suns if they're going to make a move here. The door's opened up with injuries to Kyrie Irving, Domantas Sabonis. Oh, this is what we're talking about. This Suns defense is pathetic.
Pathetic. I mean, that's what it was in the first half. It was the same old Suns. It was the same bad defense. It was the same digging yourself a hole, and you know the amount of effort it's going to take that you're going to have to exert to get out of that hole. It was early. You heard it in the broadcast. Stan Van Gundy making the point on the broadcast last night. And this is not our first go-around with Stan Van Gundy calling Suns game. Remember that Spurs game directly out of the All-Star break? He got on the Suns defense that night. He was doing it again in the first half of the game last night against the Clippers. And he's talking there about how the door has swung open. There are injuries across the NBA. The 10-seeded Dallas Mavericks are down Kyrie Irving. There are reports that Anthony Davis is going to shut it down for the remainder of the season. Is that Dallas team best equipped to be the 10 seed? Are they going to be able to play good enough basketball to hold off a team that makes a run? All the Suns need to do is probably just put a little bit of pressure on Dallas, and you've got a chance. The door might be swinging wide open, and in the middle of him making that point that they need to play better, he then sees a defensive effort that forces him to call pathetic. We were spiraling towards chaos today. And yet, there were a lot of players that played a role, but it was this guy that carried the charge last night.
Phoenix's half-court defense is picked up. Give them a lot of credit here.
This place is going to pop if Durant hits this. And he does! And it does!
If they can get out and play, keep defenses on the move, this ball is hopping. They're making shots.
That cut it to 102-100, and that was the moment for me I started to believe that they were going to be able to win this basketball game. I thought we were setting up before he knocked down that three. Place went nuts. Shout out to the crowd last night, providing the energy on a night where you could have very easily left early. That building could have been half empty by the time it was over and not have the energy that it had. It provided that spark. They responded well to what the team was giving them. I thought we were heading down the path of they're going to fight, they're going to scratch, they're going to claw to dig themselves out of this 23-point hole. But the amount of effort, the toll that takes on you, I thought they were just going to come up short. They were going to exert all of that energy, and it wasn't going to be enough. That is when I started to believe, because Durant was in a zone. He was feeling it. And then, a little bit later on, he did this.
Durant guarded by Dunn. Zubac's looming. Durant rises up, hits it, and we're tied. Timeout, Clippers.
Well, this is it. Just too big. Chris Dunn's great. Doesn't try to put it on the floor. Durant, 15 in the quarter, 30 for the game.
Durant was awesome last night, made more shots in the fourth quarter than I think the entire Clippers team did last night, if I remember the stat correctly. I don't have it in front of me, but he was on fire. And then the moment that we were all waiting for, once they tied the game up, they erased a 23-point deficit. It's Devin Booker that puts them ahead.
Dunn open. Dunn cannot hit. Leonard fighting. Gillespie steals the rebound. Here's Booker. Booker lays it in. Suns lead.
It was the defense. It was the intensity. It was creating turnovers, and it led to that bucket right there that gave them the lead. They looked like a confident basketball team last night. And I apologize to each and every one of you, because we are nearly 10 minutes into this show. We are almost to the end of the first segment of this show, and I have not provided you with the highlight of all highlights, because this guy deserves a ton of praise. We're going to talk about this guy later on in the program, because if there is one player outside of Kevin Durant, because he was on fire in the second half and specifically in the fourth quarter, but if there was somebody who deserves a whole lot of credit for what this team was able to do, it was this guy.
Chris Dunn, their best defender, is on Colin Gillespie.
No fouls to give here. Gillespie open for three. It's good! The Colin Gillespie game.
Look at this pass, though, by Durant. Chris Dunn pulled in on Plumlee's roll. Great pass.
Colin Gillespie delivers in the fourth quarter, drops 10 points, was a plus 21 in the fourth quarter for the Suns. And we are going to talk about this a little bit later on in the program, but he provided everything that the Suns have been missing. That scrappy energy, that gnat pest energy of I'm just going to bother you every time you're down the other end of the floor defensively. I'm going to bother you. And it was infectious. Everybody fed off of the energy that Colin Gillespie provided. And we are going to talk about it later, and that's probably when I'll take the full victory lap on this. We told you that this is the types of moves that Mike Budenholzer should have considered earlier this season. That it might not have been better than Tyus Jones, but you can't tell me that it was going to be all that worse because of where this team was. Give Colin Gillespie some run at the point guard. And last night, he got that run, and he delivered. And my warning to everybody here today, the one takeaway that I want all of you to have today, that should not be the last of Colin Gillespie in a key moment that we see the remainder of this season. Tyus Jones's minutes might need to be scaled back a little bit. They might need to go to Colin Gillespie. We will touch on that a little bit later on here in the program in hour number 2. But the Suns show the fight that we have been asking them to see. And so the question that we have coming out of this, is this a blip on the radar, or are they going to go on a run? And 2 days ago, we would have said that a run may not have mattered, that they dug themselves too big of a hole. But what's going on in Dallas, Sabonis being hurt, there are pathways that seemingly have opened if the Suns can take advantage of it. They went nearly a full month between winning games against teams with winning records. The schedule the rest of the way does not allow them to do that again. This needs to be the start of a run. Is it? I don't know. We'll have to see when they're next in action on Friday. But for once, in what has been a slog recently, it has been just dreadful at times to watch this team play. That was a lot of fun last night. And I'm sure you had a lot of fun watching it and watching Suns basketball for the first time in quite a bit.